Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
We're just getting started. It's 3 p.m. here in Central Europe. We welcome you all. We'll take a couple of minutes until everybody arrives before we start with the content. But if you are already dialed in, you can let us know from where you're dialing in from today. Meghan, whereabouts are you today?
I'm in Munich. Yep.
Konstantin, you're the same?
I'm in Munich as well, yes.
Wonderful. I should be in Munich, but I'm still enjoying a couple of days of remote life in France. And I think as well we have a couple international people dialing in. I'm gonna kick off already with a little poll before we start. As today we're talking about automation, we're gonna dive deep into real use cases on real business impact. Meghan and Konstantin can share a lot, but we also really want to know how much you know as a attendee of the webinar already about automation. So I'm just starting a first poll, which you should be able to see now, which you can answer. What's your current level of automation? Haven't tried it out. I'm more here to find out a bit more. Already fully automated, just starting out. So where's everybody standing today? I see more and more people dialing in. Amazing. Perfect. So we see quite a few just starting out. That's exactly the perfect place to join this webinar today, because we'll dive deep into all of the learnings of initial use cases and the real stories of Meghan and Konstantin. But I also see a few people who say a couple processes are automated yet. Good to see as well that nobody says I'm fully automated where everything is possible, because I think there's no full automation that everything is already finished off. There's always more things to do. Perfect. So we're 2-3 minutes in. Maybe a second poll before we get started. We see here a lot of people are starting out. A few processes are automated. Now, the second question would be, I have to open this here and then add this here, is what's the biggest benefit you hope to achieve with your automation? Okay, very nice. Saving time, of course. Increasing personalization. This is what we're going to talk about today. So very, very relevant. So let's get started, as we see that most people have voted already. Super interesting. We see that at the moment we still see automation with a big focus on saving time, efficiency of the staff, but we'll go through different use cases today on how automation can also boost hyper-personalization. And so for everybody who has joined into the webinar today and doesn't really know what we're gonna talk about, I just need to add up the screens here. The goal for the webinar today, it's how are we able to boost staff efficiencies, effectiveness of the staff through technology to really create more human connection. And we're looking at the best practice cases of the new group, really focusing on their properties and their experience with automation, with going the journey on this journey of automation. And I think it's fair to say that Meghan and Konstantin do not feel yet to be at the end of it, but somewhere in the middle. And I think that's already a great place. And it's also a great segue to welcome both of you to our webinar here at Apaleo. At Apaleo, we always love to promote new innovations and innovators in the market, to have these interesting discussions and share their experiences from our users, new innovators on the market, on how you guys approach these very relevant topics and supporting your business goals through leveraging technology. And I think Konstantin, your founder and managing partner at the new group, from day one, technology and innovation played already a big role. And Meghan, your general manager at one of the properties at the Yours Truly. But let's start quickly with Konstantin. Could you share a couple of words about yourself, but more about the new group and why you started the new group when you started?
Yes, of course. Thank you, and hi to everybody. Yours Truly Hotel is not actually the first hotel we opened up, but it's the first hotel that is part of the chain, which we call the new group, actually. And the new group is an idea of a hotel brand that we want to expand over different cities across Europe. And therefore, we took over the former Anna Hotel, which is in the center of Munich. Some of you might know this. Our direct neighbors are Königshof in Munich. And this is a hotel. This is called Yours Truly at the moment, but this is not the final brand name, because this is what we call it a pop-up hotel right now, because we rebrand it next year and apply the final brand and the final concept. But till then, we take Yours Truly as an opportunity to test everything. So like we beta test kind of everything. We use different kind of applications. We try out different kind of automations, AI things, anything. But not only tech, but also like other things we can play around and try out. This is a great opportunity actually to test things if you have the opportunity to have a hotel before your final brand, before the reconstruction starts. And during this time, or the first hotel that we opened up, which wasn't part of the new group, this was our first touch point with automation, of course. Like anybody who runs a hotel does some kind of automation. I think there's no hotel out there that does no automation at all. For example, a booking confirmation sent automatically is a kind of automation. And so basic functions of automations is probably used by everyone, but we try to increase the amount of automations actually, of course, because we feel the benefit of it. And it's quite interesting how we got more and more into automation. And it's interesting that we don't have a tech background. So like we are no programmers or IT specialists. We just figured out how to do it. And so Meghan probably will tell more later about it, how we exactly figured out how to set up different automations. But our entry point for that was, of course, to choose the right PMS system or the right cloud platform, because it's very important to have all the opportunities. You need an open API to connect everything you need and everything you want to automate. So if you're stuck in a legacy PMS, you probably have a hard time automating things the way you want to. And so Apaleo was the perfect pick for us back then. And from then on, we started to try out different automations in different levels.
Yeah, super interesting, especially that you guys so early on took the step of having a test hotel, a bit of a more pop-up hotel, but it allows you to fail, but fail fast, right? I think
sure.
that is, especially in the new age of technology and innovation, is always important, that you can't have that 5-star level service always guaranteed if you try to evolve as well from a concept, and we'll dive much more into that in a second. Meghan, your role today is a general manager at the Yours Truly. You joined the new group 2 years ago. Maybe share a couple of words about yourself and also your journey, especially linked to your role and innovation at the group in the last 2 years.
Yeah, of course. So I started at the new group 2 years ago at yours truly, but Konstantin and I had previously worked together at his last project. So we'd known each other there as well and been already testing out some of the same concepts there. And as Konstantin said, neither one of us has a technical background. I studied English literature and journalism in college and then kind of fell into the hotel industry accidentally and then loved it. So I have zero background with any kind of automation or coding. But it really just became something that we realized we have to learn and we have to figure out how to do, because this is the way that the hospitality industry is heading. So since I started 2 years ago, it's been our complete goal to automate as much as we can, to test out new projects, to involve the team as much as possible in all our new ideas and getting feedback from the guests as well to figure out what works and what doesn't work. So we have this really great opportunity right now to completely change up the way we do things on a weekly or even monthly basis to perfect the concept so that when we open up with the new brand, hopefully next year, that we've really just got everything down exactly how we want to.
Yeah, super interesting. Both of you, really speak about how automation is already part of your company DNA and plays a big role to offer your service level and also have the efficiency behind the scenes. But what was your entry point looking at automation? Was there like one great pain point you tried to solve and you're like, okay, we need to get into this? How did you get into the topic of automation?
Well, the entry point actually was, I'm not sure whether it was a Apaleo newsletter or the Apaleo community, because we found out that make.com has a connection to Apaleo. And this was the point where we immediately looked into it. And we really tried around with our first automation, though, and figured out that this is a super effective way to easily save time. And this is what although the first automation was like super basic, I think, but super basic, but it already saved a lot of time. And the other thing, it's not only about time saving, it's also about motivating the team. Nobody wants to do repetitive tasks that are no fun at all. And automation can help with that. And it can help with that a lot. And this is, for the first automations, this was even more kind of benefit than time saving. So, but as the amount of automations was growing, this time saved was also growing. And then we figured out this is really a game changer for us, actually.
Very interesting. I think it's always important to start small, right? It needs to be bite sizes so that you can get the hang of it. Often the problem is when you try to directly solve all of your problems with your first try, and then you get frustrated and you stop. But how do you guys and who's involved take the decision in the process, or what's the decision-making process on which workflows or processes should be automated, and maybe which ones do you decide, no, this needs to be a personal touch. No, we want to make sure that we have that manual decision-making process. How do you guys go about that?
Well, in general, the whole team decides which tasks should be automated. Because what I said before, nobody actually enjoys doing repetitive tasks. And so if we can help out with an automation, they are happy, of course, and they would support us in creating this automation. And what we also find out is we question like every process or processes we have in the hotel and look what could we automate. But we try to avoid to automate guest-facing things. But this is depending on the concept. There are concepts out there that also automate all the guest-facing things, and that works well as well. But for our concept, it's like the personal connection to our guests always stays human. But we now have the time to spend even more time for human connections because we automate everything else. Of course, you can automate guest contacts as well. You all know those AI chatbots, but we deliberately don't use them because we want to keep that personal. But the only exception is at night. At night, we're not staffed at night. So at night, our phone is taken over by an AI agent who handles reservations and anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I've stayed already numerous times at yours truly. I think I was most likely one of the first guests at the time, and I think you guys made that deliberate choice, as you said, to also not offer a digital key, or you have the PIN code keys, however, not to send that out automatically, because you really want your guests to come to the reception, not fill out any registration cards or something like that, but to have that touch point. Because I think this is very interesting to hear and learn more about how both concepts, and we'll talk about that also afterwards, how both elements can coexist and actually support each other. Because often we have this misconception in the industry that automation equals staff efficiency. For sure, that's true, but also no touch points anymore with the guest. Was that something, Konstantin, you mentioned deliberate from day one? Was that something you also tested out and tried out and listened to the feedback of your guests? How do you draw the line, and how do you make that decision?
Well, this is part of our concept. So we want to have this kind of bonding between the guests and the team and the hotel and the brand. And therefore, we need this kind of human interaction. And we actually have enough time to interact with our guests because we automate a lot. But depending on the concept, there are ways you can fully automate the whole hotel. So you don't need staff besides housekeeping, probably. I don't know how many years this will take until you can automate housekeeping completely. But for now, you would only need housekeeping and could run a hotel completely staffless. Of course, there are staffless hotels out there. But for us, it's important to have this personal touch and this personal seamless conversation going on. So if you talk to someone face to face and you talk with the same person from the staff afterwards via WhatsApp, iMessage, or whatever, you can keep that conversation going, or that kind of support the person is asking for. And this really makes the difference for us, for our concept. This, of course, we played around with AI chatbots. We tried them out because we were curious how they work, and they were actually good. They are. So, but yeah, you cannot create this kind of personal touch, which is super important for us.
Mm-hmm. So as you say, it's reevaluating, but also knowing your principles. Would that be a recommendation as well for other hoteliers who are here, before you go into the world, not just automations, I think, of all digital transformation, is to first question yourself, who are you? What are your service levels? What's your guest contact you want to have? And let's say have more kind of these principles in line before going into the process of digitizing and automating.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are some things that is a real advantage also for the guest if it's automated, because he probably doesn't want to have a long talk about where he is able to park his car. If this is just a quick information sent out, super easy, this is a convenience thing for both sides, guests and hotel. And there are other things that are probably not ideal to automate. For example, we train the whole team, also with psychologists, to do the right kind of communication and to find this right way to read guests' needs and body language and everything else. So if someone doesn't want to talk at all, this is absolutely fine. But if someone wants to talk to the team, we have the time to, and we help them out and we plan their stay. So we do a lot more than just checking them in. So, and this is important. And this, we only have the ability to do this because we save time for on other tasks.
Yeah, I can only really, on the record here in the live webinar recording, really just underline that in my own experience staying at yours truly. It was always, when I come late from Berlin with the train at 10 p.m., I don't necessarily, when I come by myself or something, want to speak to somebody and I get the WhatsApp PIN code and it's like, hey, Florian, just go up to your room because it's been the I don't know how many time or week in a row I'm staying there, but sometimes when I came with coworker or something, then it's a free beer at the bar and really engaging. And I think that's also enabling the people to have that who can focus on that. But let's move on from the high level, and that's super important. But then a lot of people joining us today, they want to know, how do automations actually work? What are some real use cases? And Meghan, you've become a real expert in the last year or so, and trying it out. And so I want to pick your brain. I just have to adapt our view here that we can see all of us, and pick your brain and start with one of the first examples, right? It's the automation number one of our webinar for today. It's the birthday notifier. Can you walk us through a bit, how did that idea originate, and then how does that automation work, and what's the success factor, or how do you measure the success of it today?
Yeah, so this was one of the first automations we built, and I won't tell you how long it took me, because it took me a very long time. So don't get discouraged. I really had a lot of I had a lot of errors in this one. I just could not get the dates right for birthdays. I was getting a return on everybody who was born in this year, that I was trying to give. So it was really difficult at the beginning. Honestly, it probably took only a few hours in comparison to now. Maybe I could do something like this in about 10 minutes. And it really is very basic. The gist of it is it searches all of our guests in-house today, including arrivals, departures, stayovers, and it passes all of their birthdays through a filter, and it checks for a match of the day and the month. And all that does is, if there's a match, it gets sent out in an email to my team. And my team has already been informed what they're supposed to do in that case. So depending on who the guest is, what our kind of communication has been with them, maybe there's a bottle of Prosecco placed in the room, a special message on WhatsApp sent, a card signed by the entire team, a personalized gift if we really know something more personal about them. And we were kind of doing this before Make.com. We were doing this on our own and trying to really look through the reservations each day and have a look to see if we could find guests' birthdays. Obviously, it was not foolproof. We were making errors. We were missing birthdays, or we would find out at checkout that a guest said, "Oh, I was here to celebrate my birthday. It was on Monday," and we missed it. That's really embarrassing for us because we want to be very personable. So this was just our absolute foolproof way to make sure that we never missed a birthday again. And the feedback has been really great. Guests who maybe are here for their birthday and don't mention anything because they're, they don't want to make a big deal out of their birthday, are absolutely shocked and surprised and super positively overwhelmed about the reaction from the team that they get on their birthdays. So that's been really, really nice to see.
Question on that. I mean, we'll talk about business impact also at the end, but looking at this kind of automation on volume of a yours truly, do you know approximately what it costs? Do you see that as also something very efficient to just work with an automation tool on this, when compared to, for example, a specific application? Because of course there are apps in the ecosystem which could also cover that. Is that something also you had as a question? Do we buy a full tool, or do we just focus on that specific use case?
Yeah, absolutely. So for reference, we also do work with BookBoost as a CRM, and they have the capability to allow us to automate sending messages on a guest birthday, for example. But there was still not, and we've tested out a few different programs before, there was still not a way for us to just get a simple alert. Hey, these are the birthdays today. Maybe a guest would get an automated message, but we were still missing it. And we couldn't wish the guest a happy birthday when they walk past us at reception in the morning. So it's a bit weird if they get the message from us, but then we're not wishing it to them in person. So there's a disconnect there. So this was the way for us to kind of bridge that gap. And I think in terms of cost, this automation probably costs a few cents to run. It's really... I think on Make.com for a yearly subscription with our automations and operations, I think we spend around 150 euros in a year. So, and that's with over the 100 hours we save and all the different processes we automate, I think there's
a case for a good ROI on that
absolutely
level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. And so you're really saying actually it's not just replacing tools, it can also just making sure to support the data sharing, the information sharing throughout the touch points of this kind of digital experience between what you offer fully digital and also what you offer physical, so that you can really say, okay, we have it fully automated and it works all in the digital world, but with these custom automations and this use case, you can also make sure that the employees, that your team has it on their fingertips and can cater the same service as you have digital.
Absolutely. I mean, it's partly a tool to keep the staff, to really keep the staff informed and to keep them on the top of their game, but it is also a supplement to the other tools we use. So right now we're testing out a new unified inbox, and I have them connected to make.com so that triggers, they don't have a CRM capability to check for birthdays, but I can create a trigger from make.com to our inbox, and then it can trigger a happy birthday message. So it depends on what other tools you use. You could also connect it, or it could work on its own. So it just depends what your needs are.
Last question on this before we move on to the next automation. And for everybody in the audience, I see already some nice questions and Konstantin already answering them. So that's amazing to see. But if you have any additional questions, especially on the processes, on the how-tos, please write them in the chat, and I will pick them up to ask them to Meghan and Konstantin. Question on that: once you've set up an automation like that, how much maintenance does it take for you on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to maintain this automation?
Zero. I think this is the first time I opened this automation since I created it, because I had to take a screenshot of it. But otherwise, I haven't actually looked at it in months. Some of the more complicated ones, the one I think we'll see next, has a bit more moving parts, and I'm always amending it, adding things to it. And it could be that the first few days that it runs, I'm getting all my error messages because I inevitably made a massive mistake. I don't know. But then you figure out pretty quickly what the error was, you correct it, you change a few filters, and ideally it should just be running on its own without any interference from me. So.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that's great to see. The simple ones, they're just autonomous in that sense. And then when you get into the complexity, as we're now going over to automation number 2 of our use cases for today, this looks already a bit more complicated. There's much more going on.
Not so bad.
And so here you're identifying repeating guests, exactly, if I understand correctly, matching different databases. Again, can you walk us through a bit in terms of like, what were you trying to solve? How did you solve it? And what's the impact?
Yeah, so this, again, was intended as a supplement to our CRM, because we were having repeat guests identified with the CRM, but we would still have those moments where we would do a check-in with the guest and give them the registration form, and they'd say, oh, but I've already been here before. Don't you have this information? Again, very embarrassing for us. And we'd have to, kind of scramble to find their reservation and confirm it was them. And we just did not have the time to sort through every single arriving guest, to search their name in Appaleo, to check if they've been here before. Really, it took so much manual time. We had tried a few times to carve out time during the day for the team to really do this. But we have a very small team, and it is difficult to make sure that it really happens. And so that's when the inspiration came to build this. It looks kind of terrifying, actually. If you've never seen Make before, this looks really scary, but it's really not that bad. It's got a pretty basic principle. It, again, searches the arrivals, and it's all customizable depending on what you need, but ours searches the arrivals, and it takes a few pieces of information. It takes the last name, it takes the email address, and it takes the last 7 digits of the phone number, because we decided that that was the easiest way, as opposed to, having a country code or a 0 at the beginning. So it takes the last 7 digits of a phone number, and it basically looks for a match to see if any previous guests who've ever stayed with us also share the last name and phone number, or last name and email address. And first, we weren't sure if that could really be, like, can there be mistakes? Will it be wrong? It's never been wrong. It's completely right all the time, which is amazing to us. It was catching repeat guests that our CRM was missing, that my team was missing. And at first it started off just that simple. It started off with finding a match and then sending my team an email, and that was it. And we've added on a few different things. For example, it adds a star emoji, which I got an idea from somebody in the community for this. That adds a star emoji to the guest's name and Apaleo, so the team can immediately find them when they're looking at the arrivals list. It also copies all of the comments from the previous reservations. So I know their preferences, I know what they like to drink, I know what rooms they liked, if they had negative feedback. And I also know their stay dates and the rooms they've been in before in the hotel. So as soon as they come to check in, they say their name, the team immediately knows to say welcome back instead of just welcome. And they've got an entire stay history right in front of them in the Apaleo comments. So it's very simple. Yeah.
So again, here we are focusing mainly not on all issues of guests and repeating guests. You can't identify necessarily somebody who books a second time via booking.com.
Also.
Okay. So is that, how do you then identify via booking.com address? Because you have your guest journey, right, which communicates. Do you then have a process so that they give their real email address? How do you solve that typical case or challenge for many hoteliers?
Well, there's a few options there. One is, in this case, we could rely on or hope that the guest has the same cell phone number. But let's say he books via booking.com and has, his work phone and his booking.com email address. This automation is just our main automation for this, but we have it run in a few separate parts of the stay. So this runs on the day of arrival, but we also have another trigger that runs after the guest has filled out the registration form. We always push them to do that before arrival. So ideally, they're updating that, and they have to update the email to a private email address. They can't use the booking.com or Expedia one. So as soon as that gets updated, it triggers a rerun of the scenario. And then there's another run to check if they've been with us before under that name and that email.
So it's not just you're able to adapt it, but you're much more flexible and really saying, I want this automation to happen exactly fitting to your processes in your hotel.
Exactly.
So that you can say, okay, run one at the beginning. If it doesn't match, they will maybe fill out a bit more on the digital registration form on the phone. Anyways, it's autofill most of the time, not too bad, but at least you can double check again before they arrive at the hotel, that you then offer again that personal service and personalized experience.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's been really great. And the team is also, it's important to note that this is a supplement for the team, right? So it is an automation, it runs on its own, but it's just giving the team the tools to change the entire guest experience. And for the most part, the team is also pretty good about remembering the name, or they'll say, that's right, they were with us before. In a few cases, maybe we can see that the last time the guest was with us was 2 years ago. But the team will be very smooth, and they'll say, hey, your name is really familiar, or I think I know your face. Have you been with us before? And it just immediately changes the entire feeling of the check-in, and the guests feel so valued that our team remembers them from 2 years ago. So, you have to kind of definitely keep the communication up within the team, that everyone knows exactly what to do, not to say, oh yeah, my automation told me. No, it loses the magic a bit. And then the team knows exactly what to do after that, and how to assign rooms based on past stays, and how to offer the right thing to drink. And
I love it. It's really bringing tech, digital, as you say, because everybody talks about, oh yeah, we just use tech to improve the guest experience and to enable our staff. But here to really see the nuances of being able to really make sure that the processes really work and enable the experience. That's really a best in class way of using tech and automations. Wonderful. Let's move on to the third example before we then look at the whole business impact. I just look at the chat quickly if there is any additional questions, but I see as well Fabrizio is already in the chat answering technical make and no code, low code automation topics. So that's really great. Meghan, walk us through the third one. I see here the chat GPT sign, your mentioned already AI before. What do you do with the daily summary, and how did you now combine the world of AI and LLMs with no code, low code automations? Tell me more about that.
So this is one of our newest automations, and it's a nice straight line, looks simpler than the one before, but probably more ambitious than the others. I was noticing that my team, at the beginning of every shift, they come in and the first thing they were doing is sitting themselves in the back office and reading through all of the guest comments, because my team writes a comment for every interaction with the guest so that everyone's on the same page. So the first thing they were doing, so they didn't miss anything, was going through and reading every single comment, which is taking quite a while because we really write novels in the comments. It's quite a lot of information to go over. So I created this automation to help the team out. It runs twice a day, once in the early shift and then once again when the late shift arrives. And it just gives a really simple overview of everything that's going on in house based on the comments that my team leaves in reservations. So it again checks all guests with the status in-house or arriving on that day, depending on the time of the shift. And then it passes through a filter, and the tool here just pulls out the information I need. So no private information from the guest except for a first name. And then it also takes the reservation ID, it takes the arrival departure date, and the guest comment. And then it passes through the ChatGPT filter, the module here. And I have played around a lot with the prompt, so it changes occasionally depending on how I want the answer to change. But in this case, the prompt is that ChatGPT is the concierge of your Struli hotel, and it has to assist its human colleagues by giving an overview of the day. And it has access to then all of the comments and the reservation IDs, and it gives a summary of all the complaints, all the requests, just what's going on. Maybe a few guests were at this museum earlier, and it'd be nice to follow up and ask how their day went. Maybe someone has a birthday and they mention they really like German chocolate. Let's buy them some chocolate. And it gives a whole rundown of all of the comments. And then that gets sent through in an email to my team. And it gives them one clear-cut, actionable list so that they know exactly what's happened and what's going to happen. And they don't have to waste time clicking on each comment and trying to figure out their own ideas of what to take from these comments and what to do next.
Really, really cool. It's really taking out that kind of cumbersome process. You saw a pain at the end of the day in your team, just going through a PMS as well. Like, it's not that much fun to go through all of the comments. And you just said, okay, not just how do I make it easier to access all of the data, but especially in combination with ChatGPT, it's even enhancing it and making it even more digestible.
Yeah, and even it has the instructions also to remove anything about don't forget that, I don't know, any kind of operational comments, like this automatic comments from booking.com, for example, no smoking room, or things that we would have already taken care of, or it kind of ignores any irrelevant information that's maybe not necessary to the team at this point. But it's been kind of fun to play around with the different prompts in ChatGPT and see how that changes the answer. But I think right now we've landed on a very good prompt, and the answers are consistently what we want them to be. So that was a little bit more complicated, handling the just figuring out the API and the prompting, the prompt engineering for ChatGPT. But once that's figured out, it also just runs on its own with no interference from me.
Yeah, and I think that's also the first step, right? A lot of people, as Konstantin, you mentioned as well, putting too much AI directly guest-facing can be a challenge also today, because we need to also understand the nuances and have the real control, and bringing first staff-facing, understanding, professionalizing it, and then becoming real experts then, and then being able to slowly bringing it in to guest-facing on specific touch points can also be an approach. Let's move on as we are running really fast in time, and we have 7 minutes to go. Let's look at your real business outcomes. What can you share a bit about, like, we see real numbers here. How do you guys go about the process of measuring impact? And on what kind of time basis do you measure impact? And can you also walk us through the free results here, which look pretty impressive?
Yeah, so time saved, that one, I just kind of keep a running list of whatever task it is that we're automating and think about how much time the team is spending on it before. So we always have a general idea of how much time we really are saving. It's almost difficult to put a number on some of these automations because they're taking over tasks that we're just not even fully getting done beforehand. So this is what we're able to quantify. But I'd say, I mean, if we actually had someone spending time to sit down and do every operation that Make has taken over, it would be possibly double this. But now it's just getting done with the kind of consistency that it needs to. But the time save has been really amazing. And the increase in repeat guests, we've seen almost double the amount of repeat guests in the last years, especially since the automation started running. The number might seem a bit low to some of you, I'm not sure. But keep in mind also that this is not even a final concept for us. We're super happy with this result, just because the hotel is so young and we're still changing very rapidly and growing very rapidly. And from that, the repeat guests, we've also seen about 60% of repeat guests book directly with us. That's almost twice the amount of first-time guests who are booking just directly with us. So we're also really happy with that. And it's been great to also learn from these numbers and figure out how we can increase these even more.
And looking at these numbers, especially at increase of direct bookings, how do you attribute that, the automation parts, to these kind of numbers? Do you say, okay, that's because just you identify more repeat guests actually, because before they were missed through the other systems? Is it through that enhanced service?
And partly, I think, just because the communication has improved with repeat guests and they just feel more welcome and they feel more valued, but also because the team has changed the way they communicate. We've also been able to automate the communication for those guests to remind them, hey, you get extra benefits when you book directly with us. And because we've been able to pinpoint those guests who keep coming back, we can pinpoint exactly, just ask them up front, hey, I saw that you booked on booking.com. Can I ask why you didn't book with us directly? And we're addressing it up front. And we'll remind the guest, hey, you get all these great things if you just book with us directly. We'll match the price. You can just send us a message on WhatsApp. And it's just about the communication. And maybe the guest doesn't realize the benefits, but it just makes it way easier to identify those people and to make sure that they're booking with us directly the next time.
So it's again enabling, and then the staff can also just be better in their communication. They're looking at time as well. Are there any additional questions from the audience about the automations and the business outcomes and all of the goals? Also, maybe looking at the next projects, then please write them in the chat so that I can pick them up. In our pre-discussion, Konstantin, you had also mentioned that you're currently working on further innovations, because if you're already this far, the journey never stops. Can you give us a few more insights on what you're currently working on? What are the hot innovation or automation topics for the new group in the 6 to 12 months to go?
Yeah, this is a little bit related to what Meghan just showed, like the ChatGPT tool with the filter we're using right now to be GDPR compliant. But what we tried to do now is to host our own LLM, like Llama, for example, on, let's say, Microsoft Azure, for example, to be a GDPR compliant. And this LLM connected to the Apaleo API becomes super powerful. So this is what we're trying out at the moment, because if you have an LLM GDPR compliant connected to the Apaleo API, you can do anything. I mean, like really anything, because you can prompt anything. It replaces a whole CRM tool because it gives you all the information you need, and even more, because it can do tasks for you. But for the beginning, we are now just about to set it up, and we want to give it read-only access first of all to not causing some major problems. But if that works well, maybe one day we will grant full access, and then we could try to also do some tasks or get some tasks done by the LLM.
Very interesting. So you really see that as well because we always look at AI that Apaleo is the perfect enablement platform for that. That's how we position us. That's how we focus ourselves also in the development. It's making sure through the API first approach to give access to 100% of the functionality and the data, because we really see as well that whatever AI model or LLM model you want to use, it should be on your side. You should have the ownership of it and be able to decide which one do you want to work with, where do you want to host it with. And so today you're still let's say in comparison to some other bigger groups, still a beginning of the hotel group journey. So you see already that this approach would already make sense for yourself to have your own LLMs and work with that in your own environment.
Yes, absolutely. So this makes 100% sense, because we work with AI every day, and if we have like the self-hosted LLM, and the thing that will be new is like to have this API connection to Apaleo, like the full connection to the API, because this is what makes it so powerful, because we could prompt anything about all the reservations and bookings.
Interesting. Last question I have before we say thank you, and I let both of you go as we're already at time. We mentioned a lot staff, the team. How much do you feel has it been a challenge to get your team on board over the last 2 years, versus how much was this actually a real attribute to work at the Yours Truly, to work at the new group, and people really enjoying it, not just from the benefits from it at the end of the end result, but also just being part of that kind of journey. Maybe Meghan and Konstantin, I let both of you have a last sentence on that before I let you go. Start with Meghan.
And we have a very open team. I think we have the benefit also, just the team started at the hotel. They started their jobs knowing they were coming into a test hotel, and we told them be ready for anything, and they have been ready for everything. But we also get the question now a lot with new employees as we're going, hey, do you guys work with AI? Do you automate any tasks? It's especially the younger generation, they want to know these things. And of course, everyone wants to have their boring, repetitive tasks automated. So the response from the team has been really great. And we've had no issues on that side, but I think it's also just about communicating that it's just meant to assist them and make their jobs easier.
Yeah, I would totally agree, because like the feedback is super positive, and the whole team all comes up with own ideas on automation all the time, which is actually showing that they really are interested in it, and it really helps to automate repetitive tasks, boring tasks, tasks they probably do not enjoy. And so it's a win situation for everybody. So because if they have more time for the guests and less time and have to spend less time in the back office, so this is actually a win.
So it's a win-win-win on all sides. The guests benefit from it, your teams benefit from it, the company benefits from it. Amazing story. Thank you both so much for sharing the details, and also really bringing some real life examples with it. I think on the journey of automation, it's always important also to have somebody to ask about how to do things, and maybe about the journey itself. A lot of people, especially in the Apaleo community, benefit from having that open exchange in the community on these topics. But maybe there's some also who are not yet in the Apaleo community world, but I'm sure both of you, Meghan and Konstantin, are open for anybody to connect with you guys on LinkedIn and ask any questions on your journey, on some specific cases, and help evangelize a bit that part of the industry. So again, big thank you to both of you, and a big thank you to all the listeners having joined us today. I hope you enjoyed and learned a little bit from the best practice examples today. We'll share the recording as well via email as usual. And for anybody who is around Munich next week, we'll be at the Independent Hotel Show in Munich with a booth and around. So let us know if you are dropping by and come and say hello to myself and the team. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.